we had a couple comments from a few people.
Yes, we did.
Our main, subscribers.
Our main subscribers. And always
Main
comment.
viewers.
Yeah,
Rather.
what?
Yeah, our main viewers. The
Our
guys
main
who are
viewers.
like ardent. They're always saying something. So yeah, one of them talked about, responded to our journeys. That is interesting, but then also they shared their journeys about how they've been to work.
Yeah, well, let's get some back. We had a couple episodes where we talked about how we arrived at our current career. Like, what was
Yeah.
our career path?
Yeah.
We had a week where you told your story. I had a week where we told mine, but we kind of cut mine off at the time where I came to Uganda and we didn't finish it. We said we'd come back, and we're still going to come back.
Yeah.
But, so just stay tuned. We're going to come back to this eventually. Finish that story.
Yeah, sure.
But we have Bill Walton, one of our regular subscribers, commented about something with his own career in
Yeah.
response to this. So maybe you want to
Yeah, so
talk about that.
yeah, since it's a public comment, so we can talk about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, he said something about having had no clear professional career, where the time when he almost got in there, he had lied about. He categorically lied about his past on substance use, something like that.
Well, there was he
taste-
took a 1.5 hour psychological interview, which they grilled him on all these questions, and one of them was, if you ever taken drugs or something.
Yeah.
He said yes. But then a couple months later, they gave him this questionnaire, and they asked him these questions again,
And he said no.
and he said no because he's thinking about it in his adulthood, but there was a time in his childhood where he took cannabis, so he said no. But it's like I guess they wanted to see if there was consistency
Yeah.
between his questionnaire and the psychological interview. And so because he contradicted, they got quote unquote caught in a lie, and then he didn't get the job.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I think what it was. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So what's the take home from that?
The take home from that is it's crazy what some of these tests don't really say anything, and I don't even know why there's just like maybe an overemphasis on all these details. Because like in some of the questions they were asking him, they're like, "Have you ever bullied somebody? Have you ever, and all these things? Have you ever done this? Have you ever done?" And as I'm thinking about the list of questions that he's making, I can think, well, if I look at my entire life, have I ever done this? Have I ever done that? Well, yeah, maybe I did it once, or maybe I did it. Generally, I didn't bully people, but yeah, I can think of 1 or 2 times in my childhood where I did bully somebody and I regretted it.
So what I see is that
These things don't mean anything.
they don't mean a thing, and they take away the reality of that people change. People can get better or can even get worse from what they were before. And the other part also is that if people know about such experiences like his, then people are going to keep doctoring information. People will never give their true. They'll always give you the answer you want to hear.
Right.
You never question it.
And maybe that's what they're trying to weed out with the interview and the questionnaire, is to see if they catch you in a contradiction, to see if you're doing that. They figure, well, if you lie on this, you'll lie on the job. We don't trust you. You don't get the job.
But people are so good at this. People are so consistent about lying.
Yeah.
I can lie about this thing, the same one. Like, okay, this will be my lie about my life.
Right.
Just be on the
So
right
they know how
side.
to manipulate the system, so the whole system is flawed. Because people know how to get around it.
Yes. So yeah, that was about Bill.
Thanks, Bill, for that comment.
Bill,
That's
for
an
coming.
interesting experience. We found that comment very interesting. So.
Yeah. Then also we had another person who talked about the Pope.
The Pope,
Finally, we have a Pope who is a countryman.
He's from,
How does it feel?
Robert Francis.
Leo.
Is it Leo?
Leo the 14th.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess you and I are speaking as people who are not Catholic. But yeah, I find it interesting that there's finally an American Pope, because one of the things that I can kind of remember as discussions were going on after Pope Francis died, that people were saying, I heard this a lot in the media, there will never be an American Pope. There will never be an American Pope.
Now we do.
Now we have an American Pope. Now, what does it mean that we have an American Pope? What kind of flavor is an American Pope going to bring to the Catholic Church?
Yeah, because when I look at Pope Francis, he was kind of like a walk pope or something like that.
Yeah, I personally am saying this as a non-Catholic, so for any Catholic viewers, forgive me if I'm commenting about things that I know nothing about. I don't really feel like Pope Francis was the best.
The thing is just that it's in one of the comments like, why do you comment about things that you're not experts about?
Why do you comment?
But it's not about you, it was general, it's not about you. It's just like people should always stick to things that they are
Yeah.
experts about. But anyhow,
I'm not a Catholic, so, but I mean, I've liked some of the Catholic popes. I mean, I was Pope John Paul. I really loved him. I thought he was a great pope. I didn't like Francis so much. I had my reasons for this. I think it was because of some of the woke elements.
no, yeah, but
But we don't. Maybe I don't want to go
But
there.
I saw, no, I actually want to go there because some of the things that people have a problem with Francis is that they like you talk about same-sex marriages, and I think he has been quoted out of context because it seems to suggest that okay, so I can bless the people, I am not going to bless the union, something like that. So I was encouraging people to bless the people and not bless the union because what's the reality is that when Christ came. And he said, I didn't come for you. The guys were on the right path. I came for the sinners. So I think like Pope Francis was being like, okay, we have sinners, left, right, center. So we can't be the people who ostracize. So welcome them, then you're able to correct them when they come closer to you. I think that's the message he was trying to drive home. Though of course these things they're high stakes when you're at the top. You can always be quoted wrong.
So I guess the concern, where I started to develop concerns about Pope Francis, and I wish I could remember the woman's name, but there was a clerk in a certain southern state several years ago who, when same-sex marriage became legal either in that state, I think this is before the Supreme Court made the decision, and I wish I could remember her name.
So, one of the viewers could, so they'll put in a comment.
What happened was when she had to certify a marriage, her name was going on the stamp to certify or to give a state approval on that marriage. And she, in her good conscience, didn't feel that it was right for her name to go on it and refused to stamp the weddings, the gay marriages. And so she was actually arrested, she went to jail, the media picked up on her and attacked her and saying that she's trying to impose her religion or whatever. And then finally, eventually what happened, they changed the law so that her name no longer went on it, but it was just a general stamp of the office of da-da-da-da. Then she had no problem with that because it's not in her name anymore. She just didn't want her name associated with it. But the thing she complained about is nobody was listening to her. So the media was attacking her and saying that she's trying to impose her religion or stop these marriages, and she wasn't at all. She was just saying, I don't want my name on this. Just change the law so that it's an office stamp instead of my name. But then there was an opportunity that came up where some Catholic priest or somebody in a high position in office in the Catholic Church in the U.S. set up an appointment for her to meet the Pope. And she kind of came out in the meeting and said, well, I'm glad that the Pope has at least taken an interest in hearing my cause. But then the Pope ended up attacking her publicly and doing the opposite, and went and accused her of the same things that the media was saying about her, which weren't true. And that's when I lost all respect for Francis. It's because of what he did that he went and jumped on the media narrative of what was happening to her instead of the truth of what was happening. And I lost respect for Francis after he did that.
I guess at the end of the day, we're all humans.
Yeah.
And sometimes can be caught up in the emotions and emotional things happen. So it is what it is. Rest in peace, Francis. The thing is, when you put yourself in a public space, you're not going to be everyone's taste. So people can always comment. So that's something like you almost like it's an unwritten law or an unwritten contract that you sign when you get to public office. The people will always give comments, positive or negative, and that is okay. So there's no problem. But anyhow, so we have a Pope. What relevance is the Pope to the greater?
Well, given the fact that the Catholics are about 50% of global Christianity, it's significant. In that sense, like, what kind of environment is the Catholic Church going to continue to push, or what is it going to represent, given that it represents 50% of Christianity? And that when a lot of people think of Christianity, they think of the Catholic Church, they think of the Pope, because there are more Catholics than there are anybody else.
But we have a more Catholic nation Up north.
Well, yeah, because
Up north is
Uganda
what?
is more Catholic than Anglican, maybe because up north.
So, and up north, up Uganda, like our neighbors, Southern Sudan.
Yeah, okay.
They're literally almost all like 80% Catholic.
Catholic, okay.
Now, and that's part of the reason why they seceded from Sudan, because Sudan is Muslims, and they had this conflict.
Right.
Like, okay, we need our own state because for us we are Catholics. So there's conflict in Sudan and the war, and they're killing each other. So there is this meeting the Pope like had with them, and they kissed their feet, the rebel leaders, and the guys are fighting. The Pope kissed their feet, but they're still fighting. So like this
Still
guy,
fighting, so
there's a meme I saw somewhere like it's only in Africa where a Pope can kiss someone's feet and they still continue doing what he's saying is trying to stop.
So what does that say? Like what?
So that's the question is, what is the significance? What is the impact of the Pope? Because if someone of that level would come into a political space like in Africa where the guys are fighting each other, but still have no tangible impact, then where is the impact on the political scene? Should such people not made into politics at all? Should they just stick to religion or social life? How do they weigh into like state of affairs?
Here's the problem I think with there's this idea of separation of church and state, but the problem is Jesus calls us to make a difference in the world, and there really is, in practical life, in reality, there is no separation between the sacred and the secular. And that's an invention of, I think, Western culture. Because what Western culture does is it takes moral issues, that even religious issues, and it makes them into political issues. Like, for example, abortion is a moral issue before it's a political issue, but when you start making laws about them, you turn it into a political issue. But it was a moral or religious issue before it was a political issue. So I don't think it's possible for you to completely and totally separate. Unless you want to say that you can't say that if you're a Christian you have to vote for a certain candidate versus another candidate. You can't go that far with it. Everybody has to use their own conscience about who they're going to support and vote for. But you can, I think, as a Christian, be involved in political activism. And you do have Christians that are involved in political activism on both conservative issues and liberal issues, because sometimes the liberal issues are more consistent with Christianity, and sometimes the conservative issues are more consistent with Christianity. It's just that for us lately, we've been focusing more on the conservative aspects because we've been reacting against all the woke stuff, which tend to be more liberal, the extremes of liberalism. But now that Trump's come to power, you and I are maybe kind of having reactions to what Trump is doing, because we're kind of seeing everything shifting now to another extreme. And maybe in the future you'll start to see us maybe be more critical of Trump and the right than we were before, because that's gaining more, those ideas are gaining more influence and more power now. And maybe you're going to see a shift going forward for us, and we'll be more critical of the right than we were before. But we were critical of the left before because the left had the power.
There's too much.
Yeah, it was too much. It was one extreme. Now it's shifting. Is it going to shift too far the other way? And it seems like it is starting, in my mind, at least in the U.S., to kind of go a little bit too far. It's starting, I think, to shift the other way a little bit too far.
Yeah, and earlier you were telling me about how people are now worried about sounding woke.
Right. So no, I'm seeing like people that are in the woke camp that are complaining that they're being canceled and they're losing their jobs and they're being targeted. They're being targeted by social media, and I want to respond to them by saying, but wait. Your camp started cancel culture, and this is what you have been doing to conservatives for decades, and now you're complaining because they picked up their playbook and now they're doing it to you. I'm not saying it's justifiable.
We talked about cancel culture last time, sometime last year, and we seemed like we were attacking the woke people, but we weren't. We're just talking about cancel culture.
Because cancel culture is shifting now.
Exactly.
So now the woke people are becoming victims of it, and I don't support that either. I don't support mob justice.
Exactly.
Whether it happens to the conservatives, the liberals, the woke people, and non-woke people, I don't support it.
So you can imagine a woke person who is complaining now if they saw our video last year. they were like, "This guys are stupid." Now they're like, "Oh my God, this guy is saying the right
Now they
thing."
say this is real, but now they don't even want to admit that this was
Exactly.
that their camp was doing this. And this is what these far right people are doing to me.
Exactly.
Well, it's what your camp did to them for decades. You know.
For that long, yeah.
And I don't condone it either way, but I'm just saying, to me, how were you not aware that this is happening? And now you want to complain because you're a victim of it. You didn't take a stance and stop it when it was happening to people you disagreed with.
Okay, so
You know?
I guess we should be in a space where we accept people for we accept our own differences as
Yes.
human beings and live in harmony.
Yeah. I mean, I could disagree with you, but I'm not going to try to destroy your life because I disagree with you.
Exactly.
I'm not going to try to get everybody on social media to bombard your website and call your business and try to get you fired and all that. You know, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, the way some guys I heard of a Harris campaign. There's a Harris fund, something like that. They're gathering funds. They give people money to buy
harass people.
Teslas and they break them up.
You did what?
They're raising money, so when they get the money, they buy Teslas. Then
Oh,
they break
yeah.
Teslas.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. It's insane. Yeah.
So you can't that's not how you respond to someone who doesn't agree with you.
Right.
So anyhow,
All right.
that's about the Pope and basically about Trump.
We have more to talk about.
There's another thing someone said. Someone seemed to know you personally about because you've traveled all the states in the U.S. apart from 4. Oh my God, that's a big journey.
Yeah, 50
Because the U.S.
states.
is almost like 3/4 of Africa.
Yeah, it's
That means you really moved.
yes. So what he was
So
talking
for someone who's stuck very close to where you stay, you grew up. If you've moved that much, then
right.
it's not a contradiction.
Yeah. So we talked about last time. We were talking about my life. I basically lived in Michigan, in kind of the same part of Michigan all of my life. Didn't travel very far. Maybe no more than 100 miles away from where I lived. I never lived more than 100 miles from where I was born. Well, I mean, I know you use kilometers here. I'm talking in miles. But, I mean, everybody gets kind of the idea.
Yeah.
Never very far. And until I came to Uganda.
Yeah.
I married my wife. So this is like a big kind of adjustment for me to step out of my comfort zone and actually go halfway around the world. And I've been living here now for about 2 years. So, but one of the things that this person who does know me commented about was that I've been to 46 of the 50 states in my life. So when I had my job at the university before I retired, I was sent around to a lot of conferences for work. And what my work would let me do is they would let me, so for instance, if I had to go to a conference, say in Washington, D.C., they would pay for my ticket to go to Washington, D.C. for the conference and back. But I would come to them and I would say, well, I'd like to take a week off and take my vacation and fly out a week early and then go travel around and visit sites and go on vacation, then come back to the conference. And they said, well, given the fact that the price of the ticket is the same, whether you go a week early or you go the day of the conference, we don't care. Well, go ahead. So I would fly out a week early, rent a car, and I would, say if I went to Washington, D.C., I would get in the car and I would drive to North Carolina. And I used to be a runner. So I'd run a marathon in North Carolina. And then I'd drive down to South Carolina. I went to this place called Rock City, where there's this big garden kind of park down there. And then the last day before the conference, I'd come up, I'd go to Delaware, because I'd never been to the state of Delaware, and there's a city called Dover, and I would just use the opportunity to visit all these states that surrounded the place where the conference was. And I would do this, like the one time they sent me to Minneapolis, Minnesota, so I rented a car and I went up into North Dakota, And through the course of doing this over my time working at the university job I had, and also other trips that I took on my own, I managed to get to 46 different states. And I actually had plans to get to 3 more states. In 2019, I made plans to go to Nevada, Oregon, and Louisiana. I had set up 2 trips to get to those 3 states I'd never been to. But then COVID hit and canceled all my trips. So I couldn't go.
Yeah.
And I just never got back to those states. And the other state I think I've never been to is New Mexico. So there's still 4 states I've never been to.
And here you are with me. I've never left my country.
Never left my country.
So you should go back to the States and send an invitation. So anyhow, that's just about it.
Can anybody tell me what's going on?